Hey guys, alright, so today we're talking about one-step equations with multiplication and division. So can you please write lesson 2 and make sure you have this title in your notebook. Alright, so to solve equations we use inverse operations. We talked about this a little bit with addition and subtraction, but the inverse of multiplication is division and the inverse or opposite of division is multiplication. Why does this work? Well, if I would multiply 6 times 2, okay, on both sides, keeping it balanced, remember, then I get 12 on each side. So this is a true statement. 12 equals 12. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. If I wanted the inverse of that, divide by 2 on both sides, right? You can write it like this, or actually, I like to write it like that. Because this is more algebraic, we write it as a fraction. But really what we're doing is dividing by 2, then we're back at 6 if we do it on both sides. So they're inverses of each other. Let's look at another example. What if I have 6? If I multiply both sides by 3, I get 18 equals 18. And then if I divide both sides by 3, I get 6 equals 6. Okay, make sure you have this one written down and put these are inverses. Okay? All right, so let's look at some more examples. If I have 20 equaling 4x, what I'm trying to figure out is what number times 4 gives me 20. So the way that I prove it using math is by doing the opposite of multiplication, which is the inverse division. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4 because whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. And I get that my answer 5 would equal x. You can also rewrite it x equals 5. Those are the same thing, okay? So then I can check my work by plugging it back in. What's 4 times 5? It's 20, so it works. Over here, I'm trying to figure out what number times a negative 8 gives me 24. So since the inverse of multiplication is division, I then divide by negative 8 on both sides, and I'm left with y equals a negative 3, because 24 divided by 8 is 3, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. Just to be safe, I'm going to take negative 8 times negative 3, and it's a positive 24. So when I check my work, it's like a foolproof method to making sure that you don't get the wrong answer. Okay, so it helps you to make sure that you always have the right answer. All right, so you try these, okay? Try not to use a calculator either. I know that it might be a little bit more difficult, but I want you to check your work and then check your work with a calculator. So step 1, try the problem. Step 2, check it. Step 3, check it again with a calculator. Okay, this is step 1, 2, 3. If you want to write those down in your notebook, that might be super special tomorrow. Okay, so try these, and I'll be back in just a second with the answers. Okay, if you didn't have enough time, make sure you still have the video paused, and I'm going to show you the answers. If I have 6 times a number equaling 30, I divide by 6 on both sides because they're inverses, and I'm left with 5. If I multiply 6 times 5, in my head I get 30. And then if I take my calculator out, ooh, listen to my calculator going. I'm going to take 6 times 5 and get 30. Okay, the next one, number 4. You're going to divide both sides by a negative 6. And 36 divided by negative 6 is a equaling negative 6. So negative 6 times negative 6 in my head is 36, and on the calculator it's 36. Negative 9d would be divided on both sides, so I'd be left with d equaling, and 72, that's a negative, divided by a negative would give me a positive, and 72 divided by 9 would be 8. So I take negative 9 times 8, and in my head I know a negative times a positive is a negative, and 9 times 8 is 72. In my calculator, I do the same thing. I put, remember in your calculator, it would look like this. The parentheses button with the little negative sign, 9, then times 8. And it should give you negative 72 in your calculator. All right, so what if we have a problem like this? Leah sent 574 text messages last week. On average, how many messages did she send each day? Let M represent the number of messages that Leah sent. So we have this situation here. She sent 574, and she sends 7 messages. If we look at it, she would send not 7 messages, but 7 days of messages. So that's where we get the 7. This represents the days of the week, and that represents the number of minutes each day. So if we divide by 7 on both sides, what do we get? Take 574, and we're going to divide it by 7. So if you don't have a calculator, long divide. 57, it doesn't go into 5, so bring down a 0. Bring down your 7. It goes into 57 8 times, which is 56. You have 1 left over. Bring down your 4. Goes into 14 2 times. So our M would equal 82. They're both positives, so that's why we get positive 82. And then to check my work, 7 times 82 does in fact give me 574 in my head. If I do that, 7 times 2 is 14, 56, 57 with that 1. And that's 574. In my calculator, same thing, so it checks. Okay, you try this one. Let's make this Miss Millis. Mrs. Millis's car can travel on average 24 miles on each gallon of gasoline. Write and solve an equation to find out how many gallons of gasoline will be needed for the trip of 348 miles. Okay, you try that one. Pause the video. I'm actually going to go through it right now. So it would be 24 miles for each gallon of gasoline, so 24 times X. We know that she travels this many miles. So if we divide by 24, we're left with X equaling 14.5 gallons. Okay, so let's look at these. What if we have division problems? A divided by -4 equals -9. So we need to figure out what number divided by -4 gives me -9. So I'm going to multiply both sides by -4 because I'm undoing division. And when I do that, I get A on this side because these cancel each other out. And -9 times -4 is positive 36. If I take in my calculator 36 divided by -4, I get -9. And if I do it in my head, I also get -9. So I know my answers are right. Over here, we would want to multiply by 5 on both sides because it's M divided by 5. So if we multiply the 7 times 5, we get 35, but it's a negative because a negative times a positive is a negative. So if we take -35 divided by 5, that equals -7 in my head. Plug it in my calculator, use that negative button, then divide by 5, and you still get -7. Okay, so try these on your own. Pause the video. I'm going to show you the answers right now, so make sure you paused it. Okay, so multiplying by -3 on both sides. That cancels out on this side, so we're left with y, and y equals 24. If I check it, 24 divided by -3 is -8. Over here, we're going to multiply by a -6 on both sides. So b is the only thing left on this side, and 30 times 6 gives me 180, but it's a negative because a negative times a positive is a negative. So if I plug in a -180 divided by -6, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 18 divided by 6 is 3, so 180 divided by 6 would be 30. So it works. And this one worked too. All right, so let's look at a problem where we have to write the equation ourselves. The distance D Tina travels in her car while driving 60 miles per hour for 3 hours is given as the equation D divided by 3 equals 60. How far did she travel? Okay, so we know that she's traveling 60 miles per hour, which is right here, And in 3 hours, she traveled a certain amount. How do we figure this out? Well, we would multiply both sides by 3. So if I multiply by 3 over 1, right, or just 3, this side cancels out and I'm left with D. 60 times 3, well, what's 6 times 3? 18, good. 60 times 3 would then be 180. Okay, so if I check it, 180 divided by 3 equals 60, so it works. All right, you try this one. Go for it, pause the video, I'm gonna go through it right now. The distance T that Beth travels on her bike at a rate of 20 miles per hour would look like this if she traveled for 4 hours. We need to figure out how far she traveled, so we take D and it equals 80. So then we have 80 divided by 4 equals 20 if we check it. Okay, so make sure you have a label there, and that's all I've got for you. So I will see you next time. Bye.